So, I believe that Mac Miller is one of the most important artists in the past 20 years, maybe more. And I will make my case in this video. Not just for his music, but because of the person that he became because of his music. And we were lucky enough to witness the journey and should be wise enough to extract the golden lessons that he has left for us. Because Mac Miller embodies the story that so many people are living today in the era of extreme abundance and pleasure. So first, his music. Objectively speaking, he was a creative, insightful master of the flow, a real multi-instrumentalist, a true musician. And of course, he was not a virtuoso, he was not Steve Vai, but we can all agree that technical proficiency is not all that music is about. Mac Miller was better than 90% of all the artists in the mainstream, rap and not rap. He was a top-tier modern musician. And yes, I am saying better. I am implying that some music is better than other music, which means that music is not entirely a subjective realm. Yes, parts of it are when it comes to the human experience of it, but things like technique or the absence of creativity definitely are not. And if this was not the case, then I could hypothetically fart into this microphone, auto-tune it, put it in a track, and claim that it is just as good, impactful, and musical as Bach or Beethoven. Objectively speaking, I would be full of shit. This is why there are award ceremonies for music. And just to be honest here, as a little side note, Cardi B won Rap Album of the Year strictly because of her genitalia. If we are talking music, creativity in theory and in production and arranging, invasion of privacy and swimming are not even in the same universe. And obviously this is not Cardi B's fault. This just shows the politicking and virtue signaling that the academies that steer Hollywood have resorted to, honestly. And honestly, his tribute at the Grammys was insulting. I thought so. It was a 2-second clip, maybe, of one of his oldest videos when he was just a kid, of him in an owl t-shirt. How convenient. But disregarding the unimportance that these Hollywood ceremonies actually possess, Mac Miller is one of the most important artists in modern music. In the era of more abundance than scarcity, where in 20 years abject poverty has been erased by 50% worldwide, where sloth and gluttony and lust and greed have become so prevalent, and the endless pursuit of endless pleasure has become the highest purpose one can have, Mac Miller has mapped the perfect image of what happens when a human with a kind heart falls victim to the desires and temptations of his flesh, sponsored by the society that he lives in. Mac Miller was in Pinocchio's Pleasure Island. Mac was not turned into a complete ass just like Pinocchio, but unfortunately, in his attempt to escape, he did not make it. Because you see what happens when the sole purpose of life becomes the pursuit of what is expedient and quick and not what is meaningful and purposeful. The fulfillment of this goal actually renders this life purposeless. And thus, in a society where a large section of the population have the ability to make this their higher purpose, a large amount of people are in danger of living a purposeless life. This is dangerous, and this is the importance of Mac Miller. Through his story, he has shown how relevant the topic of purpose is today, because we have everything that a human being living in any previous generation could have ever wanted or needed. So what this means is that the battle of this generation is an internal one. I will say it again. The battle of this generation is an internal battle. Carl Jung believed it was almost a century ago. This is the dark prison that Batman was thrown into by Bane. And the only way out is not only confronting your shadows and your demons, but risking your life as well. And even though Mac did not make it, the message was successfully sent. We received it. We got it. Jump in and swim. Learn to swim, because water is coming. Either we master the water just like we have mastered the land, and our potential to do good for us and the world becomes infinitely greater, or we perish. And I am not being hyperbolic here. And the way we do this is by encountering our shadow, just like Bruce Wayne. Our inner demons, the beast in us, the Cain in us, our addictions, and our inabilities to apologize or forgive or be grateful or be honest, our fears, rational and irrational, our running minds and our impulsive actions, our anger and our resentment. There is nothing political about this, and this is key. In fact, this is what made Mac Miller such a special being too, that he was pretty apolitical in such a divided world. He just loved music. We have to contend with the dark side of human nature that in this new age has contorted itself to fit all of our desires, because all of them are being fed. The fun thing about this, by the way, is that this battle is almost completely personalized to you. And that almost is a blessing from God, if you will. So if you decide to bear the weight of your weapon and you are willing to go into battle for the survival, maybe not so much of the species, but of the order and prosperity and abundance that so many of us and our loved ones have come to love and unfortunately abuse, and by the way, previous generations died for, then a good place to start, if I may suggest, is with a couple of simple questions. What is the value of life? Human life. Is it even worth sacrificing my ego in battle for it? Some people believe that all we are is just cancer for the planet.
Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with the surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to an area and you multiply and multiply until every natural resource is consumed. And the only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus.
And if this is you, and a perfect storm brews in your world, why wouldn't you attempt to justify going into a movie theater or a high school and slaughtering innocent people just before ending your destructive existence? With this line of reasoning, this seems like a perfectly noble thing to do. Or why wouldn't a person that is completely dissatisfied with life and has sunk so deeply in the prison of hate and anger and purposelessness not take his life, but just for the sake of nihilism, take innocent lives before he takes his own? The patterns do not lie, and hopefully you have not gotten to this point. So again, what is the value of human life? Is it even worth finding a purpose in it? One thing for sure is that a life without purpose is a life without value. So maybe the more purpose we have in life, the more value we are going to find in it, making our existence bearable. So where do we look if we are looking for purpose? I am not exactly sure, but definitely not in Pleasure Island. Remember, Mac was already there, and only his legend made it back. Something that you are definitely not going to find in Pleasure Island is hard work, self control, and patience. And maybe most importantly of all, responsibility. There are no worries in Pleasure Island, nothing to feel responsible for. And if there is something that the bearing of responsibility brings to life, is purpose. This is the other side of the same coin. This is what the story of Mac Miller hides, the answer to our generational battle. He was kind enough and honest enough to tell us through his music, because I assure you that a huge portion of his peers are not doing the same. As long as we are willing to be honest and ask questions with open ears and hearts, and be open to many different types of answers, even if it's painful, then we are stepping in the right direction. We will encounter books and authors and people and groups that will aid us in the right direction. But again, only we can learn to swim. No one can do it for us. We must at least learn to carry our own weight. The more responsibility we are willing to voluntarily take, the more meaning and value our lives can potentially cultivate. And where there is a will, there is a way. This is why, for example, bearing children is one of the most purposeful things a human can do, because one becomes responsible for a totally defenseless, infinitely innocent being. We must understand that pleasure, comfort, and safety don't last forever. And if we wish to continue to have access to all of these wonderful things, then we must learn to live in balance with them. And this can only be if there is balance in our inner world. So now, adventure is calling. One that starts inwards, and as long as we are willing to jump in and swim and be patient, we actually have a fighting chance. This is the importance of Mac Miller.